Now, this week, Nigeria held up a mirror to itself. And depending on where you stood or stand, what you saw was either ambition, anxiety, or avoidance. As always, I would like to start with the numbers. President Bola Tinubu presented a 58.18 trillion naira budget for the 2026, promising a fiscal discipline as well as consolidation of reforms, and at the end, well, again, an end to the bad habit of rolling unfinished budgets into the next year. On paper, it sounds very decisive, but budgets at the end of the day are not speeches. They are contracts with reality. And the real question is not how big the budget is. It is whether the revenue or the revenue assumptions can survive oil volatility, like weak tax collection and a struggling economy. Nigeria has a long history of budgets being passed late, implemented slowly, and funded partially. I mean, you can say the same for the 2025 budget, as the project on that budget is still yet to be fulfilled or done. So discipline is not about being declared, it's about being enforced. And if Nigerians will be watching whether this budget becomes a tool for delivery or, as usual, another document for archives. And then came the oil sector drama. Aliko Dangote went public with allegations against the petroleum regulators, particularly the boss at the helm of affairs. And what followed was very swift. I gotta give it to them, all right? Senior officials resigned, replacements were named, they were screened, new CEOs were confirmed, and one would say there was somewhat of accountability, so to speak. And others would say, like myself, I would say this is a classic case of institutional fragility. But this was never just about personalities. It exposed a deeper problem, a problem that many critics would say have always been there. A regulatory system that appears reactive, not predictable. And the knee-jerk reaction that we've seen both by the presidency as well as the Senate. And in an industry that is as crucial and very critical as our oil and gas sector, uncertainty is very expensive. Fuel pricing, supply stability, and investor confidence all suffer when governance looks personal rather than procedural. And one has to ask, after the resignation, what comes next? Anyway, away from that, there's also the matter of diplomacy. The Senate just confirmed 64 non-career and career ambassadors. Many of them, critics have said, are political appointees. And supporters say that loyalty in this matter is what has happened to the 64 persons that have now been named as ambassadors. And critics ask whether experience will matter in this situation, because diplomacy is not, to be honest, ceremonial. It is negotiation, it is credibility, and also long memory as well. Nigeria's envoys will now be judged not by who they know, but by what they deliver, which is trade, trust, and more importantly, influence. And then there's a signal from the almighty Washington, D.C., the United States, as the country have now imposed partial travel restrictions on Nigeria, citing security concerns and visa overstays. Now, this is not a ban in name, but it is one that will, in its full effect, would affect many students and professionals and even families as well. And so it raises uncomfortable questions about Nigeria's global image and its capacity to manage mobility, documentation, and more than ever, trust. The truth of the matter is, when you look at it, and that mirror that's reflecting back at us, these stories are connected. And a country that is asking for investor confidence must show regulatory clarity. A country that is seeking global respect must show institutional seriousness. And a country proposing a record budget must prove it can execute and not just announce them. So, As always, Nigeria is not short of ambition. We've seen it so many times with our music, with our movies, and with the characters that we portray, like Ife Carter. Anyway, moving on. What it lacks is consistency, or better yet, follow through. So with a very lofty dreams like our budget, we're going to go behind the headlines as usual this week, and we'll ask the real questions, because that's where the real test lies.